Oh, here we go. Okay, cool. The first thing we're gonna do is just practice some shading. I thought we would make like a quick value scale and then practice some object shading and talk about like reflected light, highlights, and things like that. Awesome. And we can just do it together. Why not? So I'm going to split my page in half because we're going to do two different things. So if you want to like fold it or just draw a line, whatever works for you, that's great. Yay, now I've got like a little book page. I don't know, is this, what is that? Hamburger. This is hot dog, right? Hamburger. I haven't done that in a while. Or like a sub sandwich. Or chicken sandwich. Someone this morning said it's chicken nugget day. Oh, you don't like chicken nuggets?
No, their chicken nuggets suck.
Man, chicken nugget is the best. Do you ever like whip them up and put them in the mashed potato? Okay, cool. So I just wrote shading practice at the top. Write your name on it somewhere because I'll just take them today for grade. So the first thing we're going to do is practice shading in a, let's do the value scale first. So we're going to do the value scale first. So all you need to do is draw a rectangle. And then draw 4 lines inside of that rectangle. So we have 5 sections. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. If one of your sections is a little off, it's okay. Don't worry about the measurement. What pencils are you all using? Do you have like the 4B or like the H or 2H? Cool. So for this shading, you might want to have one of the B's. So you want B, 4B, or 6B. It'll just make it a lot easier for you to shade and get those like light and dark values. Awesome. So do we all have like a little scale with 5 sections inside? Cool. So I'm going to number mine 2, 3, 4, 5. And then for this one, we can go dark to light. So basically, it's the same as when we did like pen and ink, but now we're using graphite. So number 1 is going to be your darkest square. And to create like a dark color or value, you can press down. You can also cut like color horizontally, vertically, kind of like I am, and then go back over the square vertically like this, so I can get like an even darker value. Whoa, it's so dark it's shiny.
Well, I hate when it goes shiny.
Really? Why?
Because it's like, you know you push too hard.
Sometimes it's nice.
It's nice when like some work, but there's ones you want to look like soft.
Oh yeah, and then you get like all that. Yeah, I get what you mean now. So obviously, as we go on, we're just gonna get lighter and lighter. You can just like gradually change the pressure of your hand, and I like to go over these like I did that first one, because it kind of helps you like control the value. You can also use like all of your pencils to do this. You would just start with the B's, so you would start with the 6B, and then as you go, you would end with what's the 2H, I think. Is that the last one we have? 2H? I have my scales here. Yeah, 2H.
We usually use a putty like eraser.
Yeah, I've got erasers up here. I have a couple kneaded erasers, but I mostly have just like pink pearls if you need one. Awesome. How are the value scales? Boring. You guys, I have been working on our project for after Thanksgiving, and I'm just so excited about it. Because everyone's so bored with this still life, so I'm trying to like make it super fun. Okay, cool. How are the value scales? Oh my gosh, you guys. I found more. It's fine. We'll just do this. Okay.
Wait, is that what you put today?
Yeah, but we're doing an alternate version of it now because I lost them, but they've been there the whole time. No, it's fine. What we're doing, it's fine. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna have to give you like a couple bonus points or something because you did both. Yeah, what?
I had this in the summer and I just turned one.
Alright, I'll see it. I'll do it at the 8th hour. Okay, cool. So the next thing we're going to do is just practice shading a sphere. So there are different parts to the sphere when you're shading it. I put no, I didn't. I'm going to put this PowerPoint up. It's just got like some images and stuff that you can reference. But when we shade a sphere, there are different parts that we want to pay attention to. So you always have a light source. In our class, our light source are these amazing fluorescent lights. So it's not, honestly, for still life drawing, you usually want like directed light. So you want like some kind of dome light shining directly onto your still life. Unfortunately, that would just be a massive tripping hazard for everybody. So we've got fluorescent light. But if we had a pointed light on an object, your light source would come from a very directed place and kind of hit that object. In this case, we're looking at a sphere. So the highlight is kind of where the light is hitting the object the most, right? That's the first spot that it hits. And then what happens is you have these midtones, which if you're looking at your value scale, like a midtone is basically just like those in-between values, right? And then you have your core shadow. So this is where you can get like really dark on your sphere, get down to that like 6B or 4B pencil, really shade it in. And then we have the shadow that the object casts. On ours, we have very faint shadows, like over here you have like a cast shadow right there, and you have a little bit of one right here, but they're not like super prominent, but they are there, and they're coming from like above. The one thing that gets a little bit confusing is reflected light. So when we see light, it's light bounces off of surfaces, right? So the sphere and your objects have reflected light. So although we get super dark down here, there's a little bit of a highlight around the edge of the sphere between the cast shadow and the object because of reflected light. So what's happening is the light is coming down. Even though the shadow is cast, there's still light hitting the table or whatever surfaces all around this object, and it's bouncing back up and hitting that object. So we just have like a little tiny highlight. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. We'll do it. Maybe sometimes drawing it helps. Okay, so all you need to do is draw a circle, and I know drawing a circle is not an easy task. Okay, it helps to draw a circle if you use your whole arm and not just your wrist. If you move your whole arm, go around a couple times, and then go for it. That's pretty good. See, my circle's not great. It's kind of like a little putty ball. It's not that good. It's okay. As long as you've got like a mostly round object, we're going to be great.
There we go.
Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is figure out what direction our light source is coming from. Obviously, we're not like directly observing a sphere right now, so we can kind of like make stuff up for the sake of practice. I'm going to have my light source come from this way, so I'm going to kind of draw this triangle. This is just showing, I'm drawing it really lightly, it's just showing where my light source is coming from. So you can label that light source. Sometimes you can like draw like a little sun and an arrow, and then you know that's where the light is coming from. Awesome. So after you do that, it's I like to start out by kind of mapping out where my highlight's going to be, and I just do that by drawing a really light circle. So I'm going to put my highlight like right here. So you can tell that circle is like super light. I'm just putting it there for reference. Basically, wherever your light source is pointing at is where you can put the highlight. So since I know the direction of my light source, I can also map out my cast shadow. And this is just the shadow that the object casts because the light is, it's just like the earth blocking the sun, or, you know, eclipses. The moon. So I'm going to assume that my cast shadow looks something like this. That is not a hairy line because I'm doing this. I'm not going. Hairy lines are okay sometimes.
I love what you said that. It's like a struggle to say it.
Yeah. Well, it's when you just get caught up in doing that all the time, it you know, you don't have as much fluidity or like confidence in what you're doing. Like, I know when you're making curves, sometimes it's like a lot easier to map that out by doing the hairy lines, but all the time it just, you know. Okay, cool. So after I've got my cast shadow kind of mapped out, I'm gonna start with my shadow, my core shadow. So the core shadow, I kind of map it out too. It's kind of like a little crescent moon. And then you can just start shading. I personally kind of like to work dark to light sometimes when I'm drawing. If another way makes more sense to you, then totally go for it. This is just how I do it.
a deformed Jello ball.
Mine does also look like a deformed Jello ball, I promise. Cool. So after you kind of get that core shadow, you can go over and try to, I don't know, I call it making the edges fluffy so I don't have like such hard edges. I do that by like shading in a circular motion. And this is where I bring in my midtones. And then as you get closer and closer to that highlight, I know I'm going fast, I can slow down if you need to. As you get closer to that highlight, you just like get lighter and lighter. So up on this highlight, I've got like a 5 on my value scale, and it gradually changes into a 1 as I get to the core shadow. And I hate this edge down here, it got all fluffy.
Look at this experience with you guys, right?
So after you do that, you can kind of like erase out that little reflected light at the bottom, unless you just left it because you're smart and think ahead. Unlike me, I never think ahead. Okay, cool. Yeah, what's up?
I was just wondering when this class ends.
What's up? Got an hour left. Cool, so after you do that, then you can shade in the cast shadow. The cast shadow usually starts out really dark, like at a number 1. And then it'll maybe get a little bit lighter as you go on. Maybe do number 3, but it stays pretty dark. Cool, shade of the spear, look at that. So we got our highlight, midtone, core shadow, and reflection, and cast shadow.
Oh, wait, yeah, wait a minute.
Okay, are we ready to move on? Need another minute? Cool. Okay, cool. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're just gonna shade a cube really quick so that you have like a geometrical object. I guess a sphere is also, is a sphere geometrical? I don't know, I haven't been in math in a long time. Cool, so a more rigidly geometrical shape than a sphere. So your cube doesn't have to be like giant. Just draw something like that. It's okay if it's a little off. So when we have a cube shape, it's like a little bit like a sphere, except you can kind of assume that each plane or like side of the cube will have its own shape. So we don't have to worry as much about like blending it all like a gradient. Although a cube can still have reflected light. So one of these sides may have like some reflected light on it. It still has a cast shadow. It's still got like all of these elements. They just act a little bit differently because, you know, a cube is so flat on each side. It's just different. So to draw a cube or to shade a cube, I'm gonna assume that my light source is somewhere over here for this one. So I'm gonna draw my like little sun. So it's coming from this way. So now I know that this front face of my cube is gonna be like the lightest shaded because that's where the light's hitting it the hardest. So to shade this, you can kind of like really super, super lightly shade it. So you still got like a little bit of pencil texture on there, but it's like even lighter than a number 5 on our value scale. The top of the cube is going to be just like a mid-tone basically, so you can kind of look at what we did up here on the sphere in this mid-tone area and do something similar. So I'm just going to aim for like, if I'm looking at my value scale, I'm going to aim for like a 3 and a 4. Sometimes to like reinforce these edges, you can fill those in a little bit, make them darker. And then this other side is basically the darkest side. So this is just like the core shadow that we had on our sphere. Keep in mind that we might have a little bit of reflected light from the tabletop. So you can kind of map that out. And you would just sketch it a little lighter than the rest. So for the cast shadow, since we have this like light, oh, whoops, I didn't mean to draw that, light coming in from this way, we can kind of assume that our cast shadow will be behind the cube. Something like that. And then just like before, the cast shadow might get lighter as you go on. Cool, yay, cube. Okay, cool. Are you okay if I like switch the camera away from the cube? Because I want to show you something. So, well, I guess I don't need to switch it. There's a really cool other use for these viewfinders besides like finding composition. It's with these specifically, so these bigger gray ones that have like the slidey situation. This dot, like opening in the middle, allows you to like hold it up and look at your still life and find value. So you can assume that this object is like a mid-tone, right? You know, this is like kind of a middle shade on the value scale. So if you're having trouble finding value on any of the objects in your still life, you can come grab one of these, look through it, and it's going to isolate spots on your still life so you can see what value they are, right? Because sometimes it's a little difficult when we're looking through we're just looking and you have like all the information in front of you. But when you look through this, it can really isolate that information to like one little spot so that you can tell what the value is easier. Cool. So if you're like drawing your still life and you're unsure these next 2 days while we're finishing this unit up, you can come grab one of these and just like take a peek. It'll help out. Cool. Does that make sense? If you want to test that out today, feel free to come up and grab one. The other thing we're going to do on the other side is I really wanted you to like see this guide that I uploaded. Of course, I'm here to help, and I can come around and help you like get shapes right and proportions and whatever if you need me. But I'm about to post this. If I can find the draft. Cool. So, wait, let me close the visualizer because it slows my computer down. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Awesome. So in our classroom, this is a draft right now. I'm about to post it. This is where you can turn in what we did today. But I posted this PDF of the little workbook I showed you. It's just got a lot of, it's just like a lot of step-by-step like still life info, which is really nice. It talks about materials. If you're interested in this stuff, this is a really good read. If you're having some trouble with perspective, this is helpful. But once you kind of get down here past composition, which is what we've been talking about the past couple days, there are some kind of tutorials explaining how to draw different basic shapes. So I just thought if you wanted to like pick one of these and kind of at least read it and do some sketches. You don't have to spend like 30 minutes on this. But it's really helpful because she really breaks down like proportions. Like this first one talks about how you can look at the size of the neck of the bottle and then kind of assume the rest of it, and you can draw those lines down the middle so you can get everything symmetrical. So the picture, you all have a picture over there. This one might be helpful for that. Vegetables, we all have the grapes. That's a fruit. Similar to a vegetable, a little bit. Cool. And then if you have any other questions about shadows and highlights, it has some more information. Folds, we've got some folds in some of these. Still lifes on the tables. This one really has a couple, so this is really helpful. Cool. So if y'all want to spend like 10 minutes looking at that, maybe doing some sketches on the right side if you wanted to, like if you have like a pitcher or a bottle at your table and you want to like practice that really quick. After that, you can get your outlines out, and if you have any like changes, we did the outlines, right? We did like an outline?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I feel like I had like a fever dream and I was like, our class did nothing, we're so okay, anyways, we're all good. But you can get your outlines out and do any like last minute changes, finish that up, because when we come into class on Wednesday, we will really start shading those in. Sound good? So today I'm gonna walk around and like see if everybody's good with everything like proportionately, if you've got your good like ground to wall, because remember we're gonna pretend that there's like a wall behind our still life so we don't have to draw everything in the classroom behind it. So I can help y'all out with that. Sound good? Awesome. Leave these out on your desk and I'll come around and write on a sticky note that you did it all, and so you don't have to upload it. I'll just do that. Okay.